hello there. I wasn't expecting any visitors today, but it's lovely to see you. I was just reading some old letters from my father. What can I help you with? I see. Well, if you wanted to learn more about the Peckovers, you couldn't have come to a better person. My name is Alexandrina Peckover. I'm the eldest of Lord Alexander Peckover's 3 daughters. My family moved here when my great-grandfather arrived in 1777, and I don't think we'll ever leave Wisbech. My great-grandfather set up the first bank in Wisbech from our house. The responsibility of looking after the bank has passed down through the family, from my great-grandfather to my grandfather and to my father. They were all incredibly clever and hard-working men. My father could do the most amazing sums in his head. He could do 4 times 2 and 6 divided by 3. He could even do sums with very big numbers, like £100 plus £6, just like that. And they certainly aren't easy. If you can do sums like that too, you must be very clever. But you don't become a lord just for being good at maths. My father was so much more than a banker. He did all he could for the town of Wisbech. We are a Quaker family, so we believe that God is in every living thing and we should treat them all with kindness. Father always taught us to do the best we could to make society a better place. My Aunt Priscilla campaigned for peace and was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize 4 times. My Uncle Jonathan set up a working men's club to give the people of Wisbech somewhere to go after work. And my youngest sister, Anna Jane, joined the Salvation Army to provide shelter and food for homeless people. Father loved going on journeys. He would bring back different objects and artefacts wherever he went. He liked to tell people he was a collector. A collector is someone who collects objects that are usually similar in some way. A person might collect postage stamps or seashells. Do you collect anything? If you do, you're a collector too. A lot of Father's collection was donated to the Wisbech and Fenland Museum for everybody to enjoy. Next time you visit, why don't you see how many of his objects you can find? In 1864, an opportunity arose to go on a real adventure. Some of my father's friends were planning a very long holiday to Egypt. The chance to spend more than 8 weeks exploring another country inspired him. Think of all the stories he could tell when he came back. Imagine the Egyptian artefacts he'd be able to bring. Picture the faces of the people of Wisbech as they gazed at these objects from faraway places. Of course, he would be very sad to leave me and my sisters behind, but this chance of a lifetime, as he said, wouldn't come again. So he left me and my sisters in the care of Aunt Priscilla and set off east for Egypt. When my father and his friends arrived in Egypt, they boarded a Nile riverboat called the Zuleika. Did you know the River Nile is one of the longest in the world? It flows all the way through Egypt. The river was very important to ancient Egyptians. They'd use it as drinking water, to water their crops, to make papyrus paper, and to transport the very heavy rocks used to build the pyramids. After 4 weeks of very slow sailing down the Nile, they had passed through many Egyptian cities. They'd seen the Sphinx, pyramids, and lots of temples. They'd even seen mummies, some of which were for sale for £100. Father wrote to us of the mummy-laden air that filled the chambers of the pyramids. Apparently, the smell was horrible. He had viewed and collected many objects: canopic jars, shabti figures, amulets, and stela. There was one thing, however, that he had not yet seen. He wrote to us in a letter, "I have made every endeavour to get insects, but have so far been much disappointed, the varieties being very few." I can imagine Father sighing as he writes, "We have not even seen any species of the scarabaeus yet." Scarab beetles were worshipped as a symbol of the ancient Egyptian god Khepri. Almost everywhere you look in ancient Egyptian art, there are scarab beetles, and Father was desperate to see one. But he was not one to sit and mope for long. He always could find hope. I hear of scorpions at Thebes, and shall offer a small reward to the crew for each insect they bring me. Well, if he couldn't get a scarab beetle, a scorpion would certainly be interesting enough. When they arrived in the ancient city of Thebes, they visited an enormous temple with stone pillars decorated with incredible stone art. Some of the panels showed events, like a king in battle with the sea people, or a king fighting a lion. And some panels were of everyday life, people eating things or playing games. While he was admiring one of the panels of an ancient Egyptian queen, someone rushed into the temple to find him. They were holding a long pointy stick, and wriggling around on the end of it was a scorpion. Father paid the man a coin and took the scorpion. As he did, more people came rushing into the temple, each with sticks and insects on the end. This was such a strange scene, Father even drew this picture describing it. Each stick had a different insect. Some were scorpions of every colour. There were mantis bugs with big eyes and long arms. And one more insect. One bug which was perhaps not very interesting to look at. A small, round, black beetle, shimmering slightly in the sun. Can you guess what it was? A scarab beetle, at last! Father handed coins to everyone who had brought him an insect for his collection. By now his jar was full to the brim, but he had one coin left. There was a man selling something that was not an insect. It was a scarab amulet. In ancient Egyptian times, small round stones were carved to look like scarab beetles. They were worn around the neck, and they were said to bring luck. Well, Father had already had enough luck for that day, but he couldn't resist buying the amulet. Well, that's quite enough from me. We've learned about a lot of things today. I told you some of the things my family have done in Wisbech. I showed you part of my father's collection. And we heard a story about my father's trip to Egypt. What was your favourite thing we learned about Lord Alexander Peckover? Perhaps you liked hearing how a man from Wisbech had such an enormous collection of Egyptian objects. Or maybe you liked hearing he was a brilliant collector, and lots of his collection is at the Wisbech and Fenland Museum. Why don't you have a go at drawing or writing some of the things you've learned about Lord Alexander Peckover? I'd love to see what you come up with.